Perfume Genius Ugly Season album review. Let's chat about it. Hey friends, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning, here tonight to chat about this latest from Perfume Genius, aka Mr. Mike Hadrius. He has been one of my favorites for years now, and someone who I have personally have enjoyed watching grow over the years. His very lo-fi and very hushed debut album, Learning, it's a little, it's a little rough around the edges, maybe sometimes a little too lo-fi. But it was unbearably personal at times, and one of the most stark and really wowing debuts I'd heard in a while. His follow-up album, Put Your Back Into It, guess what? I cried back in 2012 when I first heard it, and I cried last week when I listened to it again. But ever since, Mike has really become, coming out of his shell more and more with each release. 2014's Too Bright was a daring art pop record, but it was, much louder at times, much more glossier as far as production goes, but it was also armed with the same sort of heart-wrenching, intense performances, even more so at times. I've raved about No Shape since its release. It is glitzy, it is glamorous, it is incredible. Even my reservations on the length of his last album, Set My Heart on Fire Immediately, were all for naught. This thing is just another masterpiece in Mike's discography. The guy has been on an incredible roll. Now, leading up to this album, I was kind of thrown off, mostly because, A, there were no singles released from this album, which usually tells me that an artist is going to do something pretty daring, pretty left field. On top of that, we all, you should know by now that Mike was also working on an experimental dance piece a couple of years ago called The Sun Still Burns Here, and most of the music that we get on this album was released with that production a couple of years back. That all being said, this is a pretty wowing change of pace from Mike. Just a Room starts this album off, and just as I suspected, this is already a major departure for Perfume Genius. It is thick, it is dramatic, it is wildly artsy. It's a little dark, it's a little mysterious at points, but it's also really inviting. And these are all elements to the music of Perfume Genius that we've heard over the years, but not this bold and colorful. Between the pacing and just how captivating this track is, I just want to listen to it more and more. That, alongside of just how chilling Mike's performance is on this track, it makes for a hell of an opener. Not only that, but it really cements the levels of experimentation and self-discovery that Mike is willing to go to, and that alone is commendable. And if that was a chilling, sort of bleak start, Herem is even more of that. It's a very stark, very atmospheric track, one that certainly takes its time getting rolling. It is really graceful though, and I love Mike's very dreamy vocals on this track. And like I said, it's a track that takes its time. It goes well over 7 minutes. These are all big changes from Mike, but it really doesn't come off bloated. It doesn't really come off like too much. It's really captivating just as long as you go into it with an open mind. And the hype is so real on Pop Song, it really is. This is one of the more playful tracks here, even a little bouncy in parts, but I personally needed that. But even outside of that, this instrumental is beautiful. It is so charming. It is so serene as well. And Mike's vocals, once again, they are breathtaking. I don't really mind that this track is well over 5 minutes long either. It's great. This album's title track, Ugly Season, is really cool too. I love the warm, tropical rhythms of this track. It almost has like a reggae feel at points. It's really inviting in a way, even if it is, once again, pretty gloomy, even tortured at times. And listen, Mike's very low-key, much more harrowed vocals on this track, they're not going to be for everyone. I think it's pretty mesmerizing overall, honestly. I think this track is awesome. I do have one complaint though, and you might not agree with me on this. There are a few tracks on here that this album just gets a little full of itself, I feel like. Teeth, I really tried. I really tried so many times. I thought I was going to love this track, and there's elements of it too that I do like, but it's just, I don't know, it's so frail sounding. And if you know Mike's music, you know that a very hushed, very quiet performance is something very well in his wheelhouse. It's something where he's strived with in the past. But the very quiet, very sorrowful vocals along this instrumental that feels like it's going to fall apart at any second, it's not for me. And it really doesn't help either that this is one of the least compelling instrumentals on this entire album. And Scherzo, sorry friends, this is easily my least favorite track here. Artsy, over-the-top Baroque Pop is awesome when it's done right. But this just seems phoned in, artsy for the sake of just being a little different. And the result, more than anything, is just kind of annoying. It's a shame. And Photograph really isn't my cup of tea either. It's not the worst track here. There's some pretty cool elements once again. The jazzy horns, the dreary atmosphere, the very, slow pacing to this track. It almost reminds me out of the book of, I don't know, Shushu. Work with me here. I'm trying not to talk about Twin Peaks. But I don't know, Mike's performance here, it doesn't really captivate me as it does on other tracks here. I don't know, just not for me. It also just gets downright ugly by the end of it, no pun intended. Now, this album is not perfect, but the amount of, artistry on display on this album, more times than not, is incredible, and Mike's creative role is really impenetrable right now. Eye on the Wall, it was released some time ago, it dates back to like 2019, but it's right at home on this album. There's off-kilter rhythm and, once again, very haunting vocal display. It ends up being a really hypnotic piece of art that's very easy to get lost in. As far as the weirder, more experimental side of music, as far as this year goes, I can't think of many other albums that have dared to go places and push boundaries like this, but also remain, very inviting, very approachable. It's commendable and one of the more progressive tracks here. And then we get Hellbent. What even is this? No, seriously, where are we? With this track, Mike Hadrius, Perfume Genius, presents noise. Glorious noise. Borderline industrial, and it is really exciting. And once Mike comes in, he sounds like he is in charge of everything here. He owns this track. He sounds like a damn enigma between this very grotesque, very harrowed, tortured instrumental. Jesus. And it justifies its plus 7-minute runtime beautifully. And C-Note as a finale, honestly, it's a very nice, very beautiful piano ballad that ends this album off. I kind of needed a little track to unwind after that one. It's pleasant, but it has a very dramatic side to it, which is something that Mike has done plenty with in the past. I mean, yes, it's a quiet track, but it has a power to it deep down. It has that intensity to it deep down. And by the time the other instrumentals pop in, this track is a tear-jerking, multi-layered track that ends off this album beautifully. Good on you, Mike. I mean, do I prefer some of his last few albums to this? Yes, I do. I personally do. And is this album perfect? No, it's not. Like I said, there are a few tracks that, I don't know, make me feel like it's a little full of itself at times, but come on. As far as modern art pop goes, there are no others that are on such a roll right now as Mike Hadrius. This is an awesome, very genre-pushing album for Mike, and I can't wait to see what he does with it next. I'd love to see him go even further and deeper down this rabbit hole, the more experimental side of his music. And yeah, it's not perfect, but man, I still think his role right now is pretty impenetrable. I'm feeling a very strong 7 on this album, but let me know what you guys think down below. If you like the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, friends, have a great day.